Dr. Minji Park stepped off the transport shuttle and into the busy halls of orbital station Kepler 7. The sounds hit her first. Dozens of different alien voices filled the air with clicks, whistles, and strange musical tones. The smells came next. Sweet perfumes mixed with metallic scents and something that reminded her of ocean water. She had never seen so many different beings in one place. Tall blue creatures with 4 arms walked past short gray ones with big round eyes. Flying, beings with colorful wings moved through the upper levels while others crawled along the walls on many legs. This was her new home for the next 2 years. Minji pulled her luggage behind her as she followed the signs to the human section. She was here to study alien life forms as a xenobiologist. Earth had sent her to learn about the creatures that lived on other worlds. It was the job she had always wanted. Station Commander Taiho Kim met her at the human quarters. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but he looked tired. Very tired. "Welcome to Kepler 7, Dr. Park," he said as they shook hands. "I hope you are ready. For this place, it can be quite intense." "I have been looking forward to this for years," Minji replied. "When do I start working?" Taiho smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Tomorrow morning. But first let me show you around and explain some rules. There are areas on this station you must never go to, for your own safety." As they walked through the station, Taiho pointed out different sections. The medical bay was run by the Velkari, tall beings covered in brown fur. The engineering deck belonged to the Gentari, who looked like living crystals that sparkled in the light. The security office was shared between humans and the insect-like Kavek. Each species has their own culture and beliefs, Taiho explained. What seems normal to us might be terrifying to them, and what they fear might seem silly to us. They passed through the main trading area, where hundreds of beings bought and sold goods from across the galaxy. Strange fruits that glowed in the dark sat next to metals that sang when touched. Minji had never imagined such wonders existed. "This is amazing," she whispered. "Yes, it is. But remember, not everything here is safe," Taiho warned. They took a lift down to the lower levels. The halls became quieter here. Fewer beings walked around, and those who did moved quickly with their heads down. "What is down here?" Minji asked. "Storage mostly, and some research labs." And Taiho stopped walking. "And the restricted areas." They stood before a heavy door marked with warning signs in dozens of languages. Red lights flashed around the frame. Even the air felt different here, thick and heavy. "What is behind that door?" Minji asked. Taiho was quiet for a long moment. "Something that has been here for 3 years. Something that every species on this station fears. They call it the albino fox." "An albino fox? Like the animals from Earth?" "Not exactly. It is a being from the Velkari home region. Pure white fur, red eyes, and according to every species database, extremely dangerous." Minji moved closer to the door. "What makes it so dangerous?" "The reports say it feeds on souls, or life force, or mental energy. Every species has a different theory, but they all agree on one thing. It cannot be touched. It cannot be approached. It cannot even be looked at for too long. Has it ever actually hurt anyone?" Taiho hesitated. "Well, no, not directly. But every being that has tried to get close has run away in terror. The Velkari warriors, the strongest beings in the galaxy, refuse to go near it. The Gentari, who fear almost nothing, will not even speak its name. The Kavek built extra barriers around the containment area." Minji stared at the door. Something about this did not make sense. "If it has never hurt anyone, why do they keep it locked up?" "Because," Taiho said softly, "some things are too dangerous to risk." The being was found 3 years ago on a destroyed ship. It was the only survivor. When they brought it here, strange things started happening. Equipment would malfunction when beings got too close. Some aliens reported seeing their worst fears come to life. Others claimed their minds were being invaded. "Have you seen it?" "Once, from a distance, through the observation window." Taiho shivered slightly. "Those red eyes seemed to look right through me. I felt cold for hours afterward." They walked away from the restricted area, but Minji kept looking back. Something about the story bothered her. In all her years studying life forms, she had learned that fear often came from misunderstanding. "Commander Kim," she said as they returned to the upper levels, "I would like to read all the reports about this creature." "Dr. Park, I must advise against getting involved with that situation. Your job is to study the normal alien life forms on this station. There are plenty of fascinating creatures that are not potentially deadly. But if it has been here for 3 years and never actually harmed anyone, maybe there is more to the story." Tejo stopped walking and turned to face her. "Dr. Park, I have been running this station for 5 years. I have seen what fear can do to different species. The Velkari have legends about white creatures that bring doom. The Gentari believe red eyes are windows to evil spirits. The Kavek think pale colors drain life energy. When you put all those fears together and point them at one being, you get something that nobody wants to touch." "Exactly my point," Minji said. "What if their fears are creating the problem? What if the creature is not dangerous at all?" "What if you are wrong?" Tejo asked quietly. "What if it really is everything they say it is? Are you willing to risk your life and the safety of everyone on this station to find out?" Minji was quiet for a moment. She thought about all the alien life forms she had studied on Earth. Many of them seemed scary at first, but turned out to be harmless or even helpful. Fear made people see monsters where none existed. "I would like to read the reports," she said, again, "just to understand what we are dealing with." Tejo sighed. "Fine. But you must promise me you will not go near that restricted area alone. And you will not do anything without talking to me first." "I promise." That night, in her small quarters, Minji read through dozens of reports about the albino fox. Every species had a different name for it. The Velkari called it Baek, which meant white death. The Gentari called it soul stealer. The Kavek would not give it a name at all. But as she read, Minji noticed something strange. In every single report, the being had been approached by armed guards or scientists with containment equipment. Not once had anyone simply tried to communicate with it, peacefully. She closed the files and looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere in the lower levels of the station, a creature sat alone in a containment cell. It had been alone for 3 years. 3 years without anyone showing it kindness or even basic respect. Minji made a decision that would change everything. On Station Kepler 7. Tomorrow she would find a way to see the albino fox for herself. Not as a scientist with equipment and guards, but as one living being trying to understand another. She had no idea that her choice would soon make her whisper words that no one in the galaxy had ever dared to say. 3 days passed before Minji found her chance. She had spent her time learning the station routines and making friends with the security staff. Security Officer Juno Lee was a quiet man who worked the night shifts when fewer beings moved through the halls. "The restricted area is always monitored," Juno told her over coffee in the human section. "But during night shift, only the automated systems are active. Most aliens avoid that part of the station after dark." Minji nodded as if she was just making conversation, but she was really planning. On the 4th night, she waited until most of the station was sleeping. The halls were dimmer during night cycle and much quieter. She took a small chair and a thermos of tea with her as she made her way to the lower levels. The warning signs glowed brighter in the darkness. Red lights flashed their silent alarms. But Minji noticed something the reports had not mentioned. The lights only flashed when someone got within 10 meters of the containment area. They were motion-activated, not triggered by the creature inside. She set her chair down 15 meters from the containment field and sat quietly. Through the clear barrier, she could see into a simple room with basic furniture. And there, curled up on a bed in the far corner, was the being everyone feared. It was smaller than she had expected. About the size of a large dog, but shaped more like a fox. Its fur was pure white, almost glowing in the dim light. Its ears were pointed and alert. Even sleeping, it looked graceful and beautiful. Minji sipped her tea and watched. She had studied animal behavior for years, and this creature showed all the signs of stress and loneliness. Its tail was wrapped tightly around its body. Its ears twitched at every small sound. This was not the posture of a dangerous predator. This was the posture of a frightened, isolated being. After 20 minutes, the creature stirred. It lifted its head and looked around the room. Then it saw Minji sitting outside the barrier. Their eyes met. The reports were right about one thing. Its eyes were deep red like rubies in the light, but they were not filled with evil or hunger. They held surprise, curiosity, and something that looked like hope. For several minutes, they simply looked at each other. Minji did not move or speak. She just sat peacefully, drinking her tea. The creature slowly stood up and walked closer to the barrier. It moved with careful, quiet steps as if it did not want to frighten her away. When it reached the containment field, it sat down and mirrored Minji's position. The barrier hummed softly between them, but they were only 3 meters apart now. "Hello," Minji said softly. "My name is Minji." The creature tilted its head to one side. Its ears perked up with interest. "I have been reading about you," she continued in a gentle voice. "Everyone on this station is afraid of you, but I do not think you are dangerous. I think you are lonely." The red eyes seemed to grow brighter. The creature made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. Minji finished her tea and stood up slowly. "I have to go now, but I will come back tomorrow night, if you want me to." The creature pressed one paw against the barrier. It was clearly trying to reach toward her. Minji placed her hand against the field on her side, as close to the paw as the barrier would allow. For just a moment, she felt something strange. A warm feeling in her mind, like a gentle touch. It was not frightening or invasive. It felt like someone saying thank you without words. "I will see you tomorrow," she whispered, and walked away. Behind her, the creature watched until she disappeared around the corner. The next night, Minji returned with her chair and tea. This time, the creature was waiting for her by the barrier. It seemed less tense, more hopeful. "Hello again," Minji said as she sat down. "I brought something for you." She pulled a small music player from her pocket and turned it on. Soft classical music filled the quiet hallway. The creature's ears perked up and it made a pleased sound. "Do you like music?" Minji asked. "I thought you might be bored in there with nothing to do." They sat together listening to the music. Sometimes Minji would talk about her day or her work. The creature would tilt its head and listen as if it understood every word. On the third night, Minji brought pictures on her tablet. Images of Earth, of forests and lakes, of foxes and other animals. The creature pressed close to the barrier, studying each image with intense interest. "This is where I come from," Minji explained. "A planet called Earth. We have animals that look a bit like you, but they are not as intelligent." The creature touched the barrier again, and Minji felt that warm feeling in her mind. But this time it was stronger, clearer. She could almost sense emotions. Sadness, longing, and something that felt like homesickness. "You miss your home too, do not you?" she asked gently. The red eyes filled with what looked like tears. On the 4th night, Minji made her most important discovery. She had been talking about her family when she noticed the creature's behavior change. Its ears went back, and it looked nervous. Then she heard footsteps in the hallway behind her. She turned to see Juno Lee approaching with a worried expression. "Dr. Park, what are you doing here?" he asked, but his voice was strange, thick, and scared. The moment Juno came within 10 meters of the containment area, everything changed. The creature backed away from the barrier with obvious distress. The lights began flashing more rapidly, and Juno stumbled backward as if something had pushed him. "I cannot stay here," he gasped. "Something is wrong. Something is in my head." He ran back down the hallway, leaving Minji alone with the creature. As soon as he was gone, the lights stopped flashing, and the creature returned to the barrier. That was when Minji understood the truth. The next morning, Minji requested a meeting with Commander Taiho Kim. She had spent the rest of the night thinking about what she had witnessed. "Commander, I need to discuss the containment protocols for the restricted area," she said as she entered his office. Taiho looked up from his reports with tired eyes. Dr. Park, please tell me you have not been going near that area. I have been observing from a safe distance, she said carefully, and I have made some interesting discoveries. She pulled out her tablet and showed him the notes she had made. Every single incident report mentions the same pattern. Armed guards, scientists with restraint devices, or security teams approach the containment area. The being becomes agitated. Strange phenomena occur. The approaching beings flee in terror. Yes, that is why it is contained, Taiho said. But what if we have the cause and effect backwards, Minji asked. What if the being is not creating the fear? What if it is reflecting it? Taiho frowned. What do you mean? I think this creature has empathic abilities. It senses the emotions of those around it and somehow amplifies them back. When frightened, armed beings approach it expecting danger, it picks up their fear and projects it back at them. This creates a feedback loop that makes the fear grow stronger and stronger. That is quite a theory, Dr. Park. But how could you possibly know this? Minji hesitated. Because I approached it without fear or weapons, and instead of terror, I felt peace and sadness. The being is not dangerous, it is heartbroken. Taiho stood up quickly. You went into the restricted area? Dr. Park, that was incredibly reckless. I stayed outside the containment field, she said quickly. But Commander, we need to test this theory. If I am right, we have been torturing an innocent being for 3 years. And if you are wrong, you could have endangered the entire station. Then let me prove I am right. Give me access to the creature's original files, the ones from when it was first found. I want to know what happened to its ship and why it was the only survivor. Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he activated his computer terminal. The files are classified, but I will let you read them here in my office. You have 1 hour. The files told a tragic story. The creature's name was Hanul, which meant sky in an ancient language. It came from a species called the Beko, who lived on the outer rim of Velkari space. They were known to be peaceful traders and explorers. 3 years ago, the Beko researcher, Vessel Starlight, had been attacked by pirates near a dead system. The ship was destroyed and all crew members were killed except for Hanul, who was found floating in an escape pod days later. But the most important information was in the medical reports. The Beko were natural empaths. They used their abilities to communicate with other species and help resolve conflicts. They were known throughout their region as peacemakers and healers. Commander, Minji said as she finished reading, this being is not a predator. It is a natural diplomat. Its species were famous for helping others understand each other. Then why does everyone fear it? Because each species is projecting their own cultural fears onto it. The Velkari have legends about white creatures, of doom. The Jantari fear red eyes. The Kavik associate pale colors with death. When Hanul arrived here traumatized and grieving, it unconsciously reflected all those fears back at everyone who approached it. Minji pulled up another file. Look at this. The ship's logs show that Hanul was trying to send a distress signal when the pirates attacked, but the signal was not just asking for help. It contained coordinates. Coordinates to what? To other Beko survivors scattered across the galaxy. Hanul has been trying to reunite with its people for 3 years, but every time it tries to communicate, the other species interpret its emotional broadcasts as attacks. Taiho leaned back in his chair. Dr. Park, even if you are right about all of this, what do you suggest we do? The other species representatives will never agree to release the creature. They are too afraid. We do not release it. We prove its true nature. Let me work with Hanul properly. Give me a chance to show everyone what it really is. And if something goes wrong? Minji thought about the gentle creature sitting alone in its cell, waiting hopefully each night for her to return. Then I will take full responsibility, she said. But Commander, we cannot keep punishing someone for being misunderstood. After a long pause, Taiho nodded. You have 48 hours to prove your theory. But you will work under full monitoring, and at the first sign of danger, we shut everything down. Thank you, Commander. You will not regret this. I hope you are right, Dr. Park, for all our sakes. That night, Minji returned to the containment area with official permission and proper equipment. Hanul was waiting by the barrier as always, but this time its red eyes held excitement instead of just hope. "Hello, Hanul," Minji said, using its real name for the first time. "I know who you are now, and I am going to help you." The warm feeling in her mind was stronger than ever, filled with gratitude and relief. For the first time in 3 years, Hanul was no longer alone with its grief.
Word spread quickly through the station that Dr. Park was conducting authorized research with the contained being. The reaction was immediate and intense. Representatives from 3 different species demanded emergency meetings with Commander Kim. The Volcari warrior Dakin spoke for his people with obvious anger. "The human is making a terrible mistake," he declared in the main conference room. "The White Death must not be allowed to influence more minds. Already we can feel its evil growing stronger." The Centauri crystal being Scylla sparkled with agitation. "Our instruments detect increased psychic activity in the restricted areas. The Soul Stealer is becoming more powerful." Even the normally calm Kavek representative Chick clicked his mandibles nervously. "The Pale One brings decay to all life. The human will doom us all." Commander Kim tried to keep peace between the species. "Dr. Park is conducting controlled experiments under full monitoring. If there is any danger, we will stop immediately." "It may already be too late," Dakin warned. "The corruption spreads through mental contact. The human may already be lost." Meanwhile, in the containment area, Minji was making breakthrough discoveries. She had spent hours communicating with Hanyul through simple emotions and mental images. The process was exhausting but amazing. "You were trying to call for help when they found you," she said during one session. "Not just for yourself, but for other survivors from your ship." Hanyul pressed both paws against the barrier. The emotional connection grew stronger, and suddenly Minji could see mental images. A beautiful planet with white trees and crystal cities. Ships leaving to explore distant stars. And then darkness, fire, and screaming as pirates attacked. "Oh, Hanyul," she whispered, "you watched your whole crew die." The grief that flowed through their connection was overwhelming. 3 years of trauma, loneliness, and misunderstanding hit Minji all at once. She understood now why the other species had run in terror. They had felt this same emotional storm, but they had interpreted it as an attack instead of a cry for help. "I am not afraid of you," she said softly. "I am sad with you. I am angry for you. But I am not afraid." For the first time since its capture, Hanyul stopped feeling afraid too. The next day brought crisis. Engineer Dayan Cho was monitoring the station's systems when she noticed something unusual. "Commander Kim," she called over the communication system. "I am detecting some strange energy readings from the lower levels." Taiho hurried to the engineering section. "What kind of readings?" "It looks like some form of directed transmission. Like a communication signal, but using frequencies I have never seen before." They pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. The signal was coming from the containment area and reaching out into space. "Dr. Park," Taiho spoke into his communicator. "What is happening down there?" Minji's voice came back excited and breathless. "Commander, you need to see this. Hanyul is not just communicating with me anymore. It is reaching out to find its people." Within an hour, something incredible happened. Ships began appearing at the edge of the system. Not pirate vessels or military craft, but small exploration ships marked with symbols that matched Hanyul's species. 3 vessels requesting permission to dock, reported the communications officer. "They are identifying themselves as Baiko rescue ships." The alien representatives panicked. Dakin demanded that the ships be turned away. Scylla insisted they were probably illusions created by the contained being. Chick wanted the entire station evacuated, but Commander Kim made a decision that surprised everyone. "Grant them docking permission," he ordered. "But keep our defenses ready." The first Baiko to board the station was an older being named Nabi, whose white fur was marked with silver stripes of age. Unlike Hanyul, This being's eyes were deep blue instead of red. "We have been searching for survivors for 3 years," Nabi explained to the gathered representatives. "When young Hanyul's call finally reached us, we came as quickly as possible. Your species member has been contained because it is dangerous," Dakin said firmly. Nabi's blue eyes filled with sadness. "Dangerous?" "No, traumatized. Hanyul witnessed the death of 63 crew members. The mental shock turned its fur white and its eyes red. Among our people, this is a sign of deep emotional scarring. It attacks the minds of those who approach it," Sila accused. "It shares its pain with others," Nabi corrected. "Hanyul cannot control its empathic abilities when it is distressed. Your fears and its trauma have been feeding off each other." Dr. Park joined the meeting with Hanyul walking calmly beside her. The other species representatives gasped and backed away, but nothing happened. No fear, no psychic attacks, no strange phenomena. "How is this possible?" Dakin whispered. "Because Hanyul is no longer afraid or alone," Minji explained. "When someone approaches with understanding instead of fear, its empathic abilities reflect that peace back." To prove the point, Nabi walked over and embraced Hanyul gently. The younger being's red eyes filled with tears of relief. "We are here now, little star," Nabi whispered. "You are safe." But not everyone was convinced. Some of the alien representatives still demanded that all the Baeko be removed from the station immediately. That was when tragedy struck in an unexpected way. A young Kavek child named Zik had been exploring the station's ventilation system, as young beings often did. But the child became lost in the maze of tunnels and was slowly suffocating from panic and lack of proper airflow. The rescue team searched for hours, but could not locate Zik in the complex tunnel system. The child's life signs were fading rapidly. "I can help," Hanyul said suddenly, speaking aloud for the first time in 3 years. Its voice was soft and musical. "The child is terrified and dying," it continued. "I can sense its emotions from here. Let me guide your rescue teams to the exact location." Chick, the Kavek representative, was torn between fear of the white being and desperation to save the child. "Please," Hanyul said directly to Chick, "let me help save your little one." In the end, love for the child overcame fear of the unknown. Chick nodded, using its empathic abilities. Hanyul guided the rescue teams through the exact path needed to reach Zik quickly. The child was saved with minutes to spare. As Chick held his rescued offspring, he looked at Hanyul with new understanding. "I was wrong about you," he said quietly. "Forgive an old fool's fear." The tide had turned, but the real changes were yet to come. 6 months later, Orbital Station Kepler-7 had transformed into something nobody could have imagined. The containment area had been converted into the Harmony Chamber, a beautiful space designed for interspecies communication and conflict resolution. Hanyul worked there daily as the station's first empathic liaison, helping different species understand each other's perspectives and emotions. The change had not happened overnight. Many beings had needed time to overcome generations of fear and superstition. But as more species witnessed Hanyul's true abilities, old prejudices began to crumble. Dr. Minji Park now led the Interspecies Understanding Initiative, working with Nabi and other Baeko to locate survivors scattered across the galaxy. They had found 17 more members of Hanyul's species, each one traumatized by the loss of their homeworld, but slowly healing through reunion with their people. "The applications for your program keep growing," Commander Kim told Minji during their weekly meeting. "We have requests from 47 different species to visit and learn from the Baeko." "It is amazing what happens when fear is replaced with curiosity," Minji replied. "Half the conflicts in this region could be solved if species just understood each other better." The success had not gone unnoticed by the galactic community. Other stations were requesting Baeko liaisons. Planets that had been in conflict for decades were asking for empathic mediation. The beings who had once been feared as soul stealers were now valued as the galaxy's most gifted peacekeepers. But perhaps the most important change was in Hanyul itself. The white fur remained, a permanent reminder of the trauma it had endured. But the red eyes had slowly returned to the natural blue of its species. The grief would always be there, but it no longer consumed every moment. "I have been thinking about something," Hanyul said to Minji one day as they worked in the Harmony chamber. "That first night when you sat with me. You were not afraid, but you were something else." "What do you mean?" "You were curious. And kind. Most beings who are not afraid are simply indifferent. But you cared about understanding me. That made all the difference." Minji smiled. "I suppose that is what humans do best. We ask questions when others make assumptions. Is that why your species is so good at bringing others together?" "Maybe. We have had to learn to understand each other on our own world. We know that differences do not have to mean conflict." That evening, as the station settled into its night cycle, Minji made her final log entry for the day. Personal log. Dr. Minji Park, Day 183 on Station Kepler 7. Today we successfully mediated a trade dispute between the Jintari and the Vorthak colonies. What would have taken months of negotiation was resolved in 3 hours with Hanyul's help. I have been thinking about how this all started. One being, alone and misunderstood, labeled as dangerous by everyone who encountered it. And all it took to change everything was someone willing to sit quietly and say, "I am not afraid of you." Fear makes us see monsters where there are none. But curiosity and compassion can reveal the truth that fear hides. Perhaps that is humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not our technology or our military strength, but our willingness to approach the unknown with open minds and hearts. The Baiko have a saying that Nabi taught me. Understanding is the bridge between different worlds. I think they are right. And I think we humans are pretty good bridge builders. End log. Minji looked out the window of her quarters at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, other beings were probably sitting alone, misunderstood and afraid. But now there were Baiko working throughout the galaxy to help them. And there were humans asking the important questions. What seemed impossible just months ago had become the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. All because someone chose to whisper, "I am not afraid of you," when everyone else was building walls. The albino fox was no longer untouchable. Hanyul had become the most beloved being on the station, sought out by species from across the galaxy for wisdom and understanding. And in the Harmony Chamber, surrounded by representatives from dozens of worlds working together in peace, the white-furred being with blue eyes helped others find the connections that made them stronger together than they ever were apart. The age of fear was ending. The age of understanding had begun.